everyone, it's me, Queen P.R, one half of those wrestling girls, and welcome back to our Patreon, and welcome back to Words with PR. As always, I want to first off thank you so much for being a patron. It means the world to us, and we really appreciate your support. If you are listening for the first time, watching for the first time, feel free to check out some of our other Patreon content. We only have one tier. It is $1 a month, very affordable for all of us. So yes, thank you. So I had the absolute pleasure of being able to contribute to a zine called Women's Wrestling Fan Will You Marry Me Volume 6. So those that don't know this about me, I am a writer. It's kind of been my lifelong hobby and passion, and it's kind of my biggest dream, honestly. So any chance I get, and I can write creatively or just something personal, because I do write for a living to some extent, I take the opportunity. So I was able to contribute a very funny story, actually, a very real life story, and I call it my Wrestlemania Love Story. So I thought it would be fun for our patrons if I sort of told you my Wrestlemania love story, and as well as sort of just kind of share this with you all. So I'm just gonna go through this, so enjoy. So just a little bit of backstory. WrestleMania 35 in 2019 was in New York. Krista B and I made a whole week out of it. Shout out to Gil from Top of the Rope Radio. We did everything that week. We actually have a pretty fun recap episode of that whole entire week. Make sure you check that out. I'll make sure I put that in the comments. So I actually had a little bit of a fling that weekend, and it was really fun, and I am going to share it with you. My WrestleMania love story. My WrestleMania love story actually began the Survivor Series prior. I was getting through a breakup and had just started my own wrestling podcast with a friend. Those wrestling girls, Krista B. I was using the podcast as a crutch, to be honest. There was so much going on in my life at the time, as if a breakup wasn't hard enough. So in the middle of 2018, I had to move from home. I had to move back home, I should say. I had just broken up with my boyfriend of about 5.5 years. And what happens when you break up with someone of that long and you plan to spend the rest of your life with that person, you've planned that for so long, and life happens, and all of a sudden that changes. It kind of throws you all the way off, and I ended up moving from Jersey back to New York. I had also planned a career and future in Jersey, so I was completely lost from 2017 up until kind of this point. So yeah, that's where we are at this point. So anyways, my co-host and I were invited to a Survivor Series pay-per-view party. It was hosted by another wrestling podcast, Jobber Tears. I speak about them all the time. I have to shout them out because if it wasn't for them, I don't even think we would be where we are now. They were so supportive from day one. Wilkins, Mr. Black, Janelle, giving us pointers. The community that they've built in New York City of wrestling fans of color. Their pay-per-view parties at Legends are legendary, and it was such a huge part of our growth and my growth as well. So shout out to you guys. It was hosted by another wrestling podcast, The Jobber Tears, at a sports bar in Midtown Manhattan. I planned my outfit weeks in advance. Looking back, it was definitely some sort of coming out party for me and for our podcast. We had just released our first 2 episodes, which was Evolution Recap and Misogyny and the Women's Evolution. And it was so weird because we went to Legends and people recognized us and people came up to us like that they liked our show, and this was surreal to us because at this point we only had 2 episodes. We barely were active on our social media, so it was very... I don't even know what to say. It solidified that we should keep doing it, basically. So shout out to our day ones. Attending this party, I was officially moving forward into the next chapter or phase in my life. No more staying at home, depressed, and thinking about what could have been. I looked down and I felt good. I was wearing a black, red, and yellow Jerichoholic t-shirt, black jeans, a black blazer, and what New Yorkers like to call constructs, Timberlands. And in other words, my usual drip. So yes, I am a t-shirt blazer girl. I love blazers. It's like my happy place. I love them so much. So that outfit is so me. So at the party, I met this guy. It's getting spicy. My type, quiet, chocolate, beard, a wrestler. He was a friend of a friend at our table. It was nice to meet him. We chatted briefly, followed each other on Instagram, never thought about him again until my birthday in January. So this was after the Survivor Series pay-per-view party. I noticed he watched my Instagram stories religiously since we followed each other. But it was not until my birthday when the flirty DMs started. I paid them no mind until, of course, I was drunk one night. We exchanged numbers and the flirty conversations continued via text. Now, I do not date. I really don't know how to, and that's still absolutely true. I had just gotten out of a 5.5 year relationship, and before that, I was single for a few months after a 4-year relationship in college. The dating landscape had changed for sure over the past decade of being in a couple, that I was in a couple. So it was nice that I kind of was talking to someone with mutual interests. It was easy. However, I am still not taking him seriously, but enjoyed the attention after being alone, dealing with all the stuff that comes with ending a long-term relationship. Now, I'm doing much better, and WrestleMania season comes around. My co-host and I could not be more excited because it is in our hometown, New York City. That meant that we could call Mania Week, which was busy for us. We planned to do everything, but it did not work out that way. We both were attending NXT TakeOver, thanks to a friend, Raw, and SmackDown after Mania. She was going to WrestleMania 35, her first WrestleMania. Please check out that recap episode. And to the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony. She got the hookup. I did not. I was volunteering at Access and watching WrestleMania at the Jobber Tears viewing party, hosted by blah, blah, blah. Busy week. The night of NXT TakeOver, which was at Barclays Center in Brooklyn, my adrenaline was high. I lived all the way in the Bronx and knew after the event it was going to be a long ride home. But I was not ready to go home. Then I got a text from the wrestler. He saw my IG stories that I was at Barclay and he lives in Brooklyn, so offered to link up. Now, I'm shy. I like this guy. Normally, I would have found every excuse not to meet up with him, even though he was only blocks away from the stadium, which is so true. I'm so, low-key antisocial and, really shy and just whatever. But this was the new me. I was a podcaster now. I liked my outfit, B-Team t-shirt. Wow, I didn't even mean for that to happen. I had a red blazer on and Jordans, my usual drip. I texted back sure before I could change my mind, and we met at a bar near Barclays Center. It was a loud bar, but we managed to have a good conversation over 2 rounds of drinks. I had a couple before we linked, so I was tipsy and extra talkative. We vibed. I enjoyed his voice. He was shy, which I thought was sexy, being that he was such an aggressive and dominant indie wrestler for a prestigious New York City-based promotion. I am never going to share who this person is. Or what promotion that is, by the way. Don't ask. Thank you for tuning in. I'm almost done. We left the bar and he walked me to the train. It was nice. And right at the turnstile, I did something I literally never, ever do. I kissed him. I am still shocked, but it was good. The first man I had kissed since my ex in 6 years. The next day, I had to be up at 4 a.m. in order to catch the shuttle from my volunteer shift at WrestleMania Access in Brooklyn. Yes, I definitely should not have stayed out late for drinks with the wrestler. I was exhausted. I could barely keep my eyes open. My shift was 9 hours of standing in front of the Bootio's photo op station. So if you went to Access in 2019 and you took photos in front of the big-ass cereal box of Bootio's, I most likely took your picture and you don't even realize it. So I took photos of wrestling fans from all around the world and of all ages and walks of life. It was magical being surrounded by all the wrestling memorabilia and all of the fans. Volunteers were able to attend Access for free after our shifts, which was one of the main reasons why I volunteered. So I could not wait to get off work to walk around. I was able to meet Apollo Crews, Lana, and a newly minted NXT UK champion, Walter. I was initially online to meet Kurt Angle and Beth Phoenix, but the line took so long. I was online for like 3 hours, and then it changed over to those people, which I was excited about because, as you know, or don't know, I don't know, I'm a huge Lana fan. It was a dope experience. I hugged Lana. I have a signed photo. It was a really dope experience. Shout out to Lana. By the end of Access, I was exhausted. I couldn't wait to get home. I got back to the shuttle, and it took me back to the subway at Barclays Center. I got a text from the wrestler. Mind you, this is the next day. You want to go to Hall of Fame? Now that year, the Hall of Fame inductees were Harlem Heat, the Honky Tonk Man, Tori Wilson, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Heart Foundation, and D-Generation X. So of course, my answer was yes. I grew up on DX, like it summed up my childhood, and it would be an honor to watch them get inducted. Sure, and I knew my co-host would be there. Surprise tickets to Hall of Fame, a for sure weight on my heart. We met up in the arena, nosebleed seats due to the last minute. But my co-host was there, and always with the hookup. We ended up in like the 5th row. Like, I'm so serious. We were like just 10 feet away from Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. Fun fact, my co-host and I, of course, were like watching all the wrestlers because we were really close enough to like, observe. And she was like, from Becky Lynch's and Seth Rollins' body language, she was like, oh, they're dating. And I was like, how do you know that? She was just like, oh, I can tell, like, they're totally dating. It seemed weird at the time. And it wasn't long after that they actually came out as a couple. So kudos to Krista for catching that. So anyway, we watched Bret Hart get attacked. We cried as the members of DX talked about the late, great Chyna for a very long time. It was a night to remember. We ended up getting dinner after, me and the wrestler. I was exhausted and in Brooklyn at a hip restaurant after midnight. We talked for a long time, and he suggested we go to his place. I had been up since 4 a.m. on like 3 hours of sleep. I looked down at my page shirt and realized I didn't want to have to worry about getting back to the Bronx. And he said that he would let me sleep, so I said fuck it. He lives close by. We walked there. As I walked up the stairs of his brownstone, I made the decision that if I feel comfortable enough and the opportunity arises, it's going down. I mean, he's sexy, he's my type, and a wrestler. I could at least cross that off my bucket list. Have a good never have I ever. We went upstairs and talked a little bit, and we went on to have amazing sex. It was good. It had been a while for me, and he was the first man I was with since my ex. The next morning, after going multiple rounds, I woke up feeling weirdly accomplished. I looked over, and he was dead asleep since his last orgasm a few hours earlier. I had fully come out. I was officially in the next phase of my life. I had a purpose again with my wrestling podcast. I had just got laid, and oh shit, today is Wrestlemania. We ended up casually dating for a couple months, nothing serious. Wrestling will always be a part of our story. We even had sex while I guested on a wrestling podcast. Might share that story later with you guys, my patrons. Proving that I can literally talk about wrestling doing anything. Maybe I'll share that story with you all another time. I look back fondly, mostly because the experience helped me move forward in my purpose and fall back in love with myself. It was way more about me than him, and that is my Wrestlemania love story. So, thank you very much for anyone that listened to this whole thing. I truly appreciate you. That is a very true story. And if any of my patrons want to know more details about this, I will gladly do a Q&A. Just let me know. But you can get more stories like this in I'm a Girl Wrestling Fan, Marry Me, Volume 6 zine. The link is in this bio. Please support. It's a really cool zine with really cool stories. You gotta support female-driven content, if you fuck with us. So please support. Thank you for tuning in. I would love your feedback on this. Hit us up on Twitter. Join our discussion group. Subscribe on YouTube. Leave us a review. Rate us on Apple Podcasts. Thank you for your support. And that is it.